welcome to the Daily Record Celtic podcast. Obviously, the World Cup is in full swing, but I think we're seeing it over there in the States. I think I've discovered, boys, some of the reason for some of the mayhem back in Scotland in the last 12 months. Sebastian Tenetke. Right? Sebastian Tenetke has been part of the Trinity team. They beat 5-1 by Sweden, right? And they've just sacked their manager. It means that Tenetke is now, in the last 10 months, he's now going to be on his sixth manager in the 10 months. So he's gone through 3 at Celtic. He's now going to be his third one with Tunisia, all since August 2025. He's the one. He's the eye of the storm. He's had more managers than goals for Celtic. It's incredible. So I've discovered the reason why the mayhem has been kicking off in the last year or so, but there's more to come. Forget the World Cup. We're going to stuck at the Celtic boys. Join me, Graeme Swan. How are you, Graeme? Graeme Swan?
I know.
Graeme Young.
You've not me for six there, mate. That's a cricketer, is it not?
Swan, he's not a cricketer. Graeme Young. Graeme Young, how are you, Youngie?
Yeah, very well, mate. Very good.
Really well. With Craig Swan. Craig Swan, isn't it? Craig?
Yes, I think so.
How are you, Craig?
I haven't checked in the last half an hour. I'm all good, Michael. How are you?
I'm all right. We all seem to be dressed men in black here with the white backgrounds. We're doing this live from Berlin and Saunton and all that. We're doing it. Like,
20 minutes.
We're like hostages here. Listen, obviously the World Cup.
We're close season hostages. We're missing the domestic.
That's because we're sad. We're not out in America at the World Cup. We're stuck here minding the fort. But listen, the World Cup is full swing, but there's plenty happening still at home. In terms of Celtic, finally announced Martin O'Neill since the last podcast. I think that was at the end of last week. He finally got announced to be officially the permanent manager. 1-year contract with a year option for Martin. Feel a bit involved, but we'll start with the manager. It's obviously it's pretty obvious it's going to happen. What do you make of it, and what happens next? What do you think, Swanee?
I would start off by praising you for your outstanding optimism, Michael, when you use the phrase "plenty is happening." So basically, since the Scottish Cup final, Celtic have appointed the manager that everybody expected Celtic to appoint as the manager, and it took them ages to get it done, and they appointed him, and that's it. So that probably does qualify plenty happening as far as Celtic are concerned. The supporters are crying out for a lot more information. They want to know about the backroom team. They want to know about signings coming in. Listen, we'll get on to all this stuff later on, I'm sure. But I think it's fair to say that the World Cup offers a massive deflection and distraction, and it takes people's eye off the ball from the fact that people are going to be back in pre-season training very quickly, and Celtic need to start moving quickly, or else it's back into the old iceberg situation of all the last summers that the Celtic fans have had to endure. So, no, I would take issue with plenty's happening. Sorry, Michael.
Well, you get in America, you get the city that never sleeps, and then in Glasgow, you get the club that never seems to wake up. But you're right, because Celtic, some of the players are going to report for pre-season in June 26, which is 9-10 days away from now. So it is coming in quite quickly. What do you make of the decision to give it to Neil, Graeme? Is it a common sense appointment, or is it a lack of foresight and structure at Celtic that's led to this? What do you make of it? I mean, does this kind of highlight the kind of failure of the kind of managerial search process? I mean, if you take Martin came in January the 6th as interim manager, gets the job in June, obviously delivering a double. Do you think would you expected a different kind of process to get to this stage here, Graeme?
Yes, 100%. I feel quite strongly. I think it's the wrong choice in the sense that it's no slight Martin O'Neill. His winning record at Celtic's incredible, but it shouldn't be this. That was the perfect ending for a modern Celtic legend. What a way! It shouldn't be incumbent on him to come back for a further year. And I know he'll likely do a good job. And like, if you look at the January transfer window, bar Araujo, maybe a bit Oxlade-Chamberlain, like the guys, the rest of the signings just didn't help, and he still managed to mitigate all the problems that came his way. He's obviously a top manager, but that's the most galling bit for me, is the fact that it was such a likely scenario after the Scottish Cup ended that O'Neill was a kind of a real contender. I know he kind of intimated that he would have talks, and it's transpired he's taken the job. But it shouldn't be this. This shouldn't be Celtic. It feels post Wilfred Nancy or Paul Tisdale's decision for Wilfred Nancy that Celtic are a bit spooked and it's very conservative and safe. And I know as a club, they've always liked it. If you look at Rodgers, O'Neill, Lennon, they've all managed the club twice. So there's a safety in that, and it's worked pretty well for the most part. But it's quite clear that Celtic are just hanging on for an extra year here to just hope for a guy who they trust implicitly to get them through. But I think one of the bigger issues I think we'll touch on soon is how they make up his backroom team. I think that's where we're at. And I know Brian Wilson, it's funny with Brian Wilson because when he's been speaking, he's talking about communication and everything that comes with it. Like this, his communications highlight how bad the communication is because you can come out and be strong on Hearts, but people are looking for more than 3 week removed kind of digs back at the club. You know, after everything that happened after the title, I think fans are absolutely craving proper communication, a real structure. That you go back to last summer as well when there was talk of like a massive structural change, and there's just not enough information, and that's really making things difficult. But I think Martin O'Neill, and he'll be absolutely, if the signings are good or a better quality than they were in January, I think he'll be fine. It's not a go against his ability as a manager. It's just it doesn't feel right. It feels regressive, and I think Celtic will be up against it this season again to kind of push forward.
It's certainly not a move that suggests that there's a restructuring on and off the park in terms of building for the future and identity of the club. It looks to me more like a kind of buying time type appointment. I mean, listen, we all know Martin O'Neill is a fantastic manager. I mean, and in terms of the word manager rather than a coach. But what does it say about Celtic in terms of their plan for the future? I mean, they're probably going to be handing out, we need to sign 12, 13 players. They're going to make them 3 or 4 year contracts. We saw it happen under Ange Postecoglou, and those guys pretty much carry Celtic for the next 4 years. So this next batch of signings are going to be the ones that are potentially going to be the ones that are sold on for big money or creating the next group for Celtic to compete for trophies and in Europe. So you're putting that in charge of Martin O'Neill, who's admitting himself he's been at the game. He was at the game for 6 years in a brief club spell. Even then, before that, was another 6-7 years as an Ireland manager. So he's nearly 15 years away from being a club manager for any period of time in terms of building. So he's going to need help. And at the moment, where is this help? I mean, you touched on it there, Youngie, about the coaching staff. Obviously, the talk is there's a kind of stumbling block about Sean Maloney and Mark Fotheringham coming back in. I can understand the reason why that's taken a bit of time, because it's not that straightforward. I think Celtic fans think they were part of the success, a big part of the success last season, getting out of the fire, give them the job, give them what they want, give them the job. But it's not quite as clear cut as that. I mean, Maloney's got a job at Celtic. He's got to renegotiate his terms enough to take that job as a coach, and then step away from a kind of safe job into a kind of maybe a bit more volatile position. As there was talk of him being a head of football operations, which would have been a different kind of job, which I think he was heavily touted for. So that's complicated. Mark Fotheringham as well, from what I can gather, I know the big headlines are obviously pay cuts, and that's and that offered less wages. I think maybe fairly true. I think, but then again, I think he's brought in as an emergency backup last season. He'd have got a higher premium. If you think, you can imagine a contractor coming in to help somebody out, rescue a job. You may not get the same money as a staff member as you do as a contractor. That's just the way the business. If you're going to be number 3 coach, you might not get that same money with Martin and Sean want you in that door to help you out. So that's complicated, and I understand why Fotheringham would want to get to be staying in the same kind of money, but it maybe not be possible. But what I would ask is, what does Martin need Maloney and Fotheringham, or is that another issue that I think needs to be addressed? Because we know there was conflict in that managerial coaching department about how Celtic played. I mean, they all admit it that Sean Maloney and Fozzie's vision wasn't the same as Martin O'Neill's. Who won that battle in the end? I think perhaps the Maloney-Fozzie dynamic changed the way they played, back-ticking away they played before. But this is a team that's going to have to change its way it's playing to suit Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill's now the manager. He'll be calling the shots. So does he need Maloney and Fotheringham, or does it want to go a different direction? Or how do you see it, Swanee?
It's an interesting dynamic the way you've put that, Michael. You know, when you were saying that how eventually seemed to win it, and the fact that Celtic emerged from the season with the 2 trophies, that they had to go for when the management team came back in would tell you that it worked, and it would tell you that Martin would probably want that again. So I don't know. I take your point about, Martin maybe want to do it his way, but Martin's clearly open to the fact that that might not always be the way forward, or that might not be the way that is suitable to the squad. And that comes back to your point. It's a massive question about what happens with the recruitment. Then does Martin
trying to point a manager? He's trying to point a manager and then not play the way he wants to play.
Well, Celtic can.
Listen,
you made the point, Michael, quite rightly, round about springtime, when there was discussions about who might get the manager's job. And we both spoke about it when Jens Bertolascu's name was kicking about. And you made the point that you can't put a coach in there at the moment because the structure in behind is not there. The structure in behind still isn't there. That's why I think Martin's the manager, because it's almost like the sticking plaster, the safer. Martin needs to hold the fort again for another year while they desperately try and sort out the mess that's in behind. All the appointments that should have been made that haven't been made yet. And now he's going to have to oversee it while all that's going on in the background. So I can see a status quo where Martin's there as the figurehead. Martin's there as the figurehead. Martin's the guy that can tell fans off for having a pop at the board and nobody comes back at him, and a brilliant motivator of players. I can see that working again. I can actually see it working. I know your point about you can't appoint a manager and not play his way. I think in this situation that could happen because it is only for a year. I think they might just go down the same path again that they did in the last 4 or 5 months of the season.
Well, clearly I think that's what they are doing, but I just think
that's what they're doing. That is what they're doing because they haven't sorted out what's happening in the background, Michael. They haven't sorted it out. They've had ages to sort it out since Paul Tisdale left, and it's not been sorted. No. So Martin's going to have to hold the fort again. Well, and glide along the top of the water while the feet are thrashing underneath as they try and sort it out. But evidence tells you, you could be sitting here this time next year having the same conversation.
But Martin did say many times towards the end of that season that we're talking about styles of play. He was getting questioned for a period of time. The football was pretty brutal, and it didn't look confused what they were doing in the park. I mean, it did look as though they were caught between different styles. But Martin did say several times it's different. If I had a full pre-season to implement my own style, it would be different. Well, now he's going to get a full pre-season. I just can't see how he's going to acquiesce to having coaches having more say in terms of tactics and setup, and just being the guy who motivates the troops and talks to the press. Because a manager, and they are big parts of being a manager, but also setting the standard and nailing down the way a team plays is also a big part of a manager. So I think he might want to put his own stamp on it now.
The summer recruitment, Michael, if it ever happens.
Who's running the summer recruitment?
Well, again, there we go. We go back to a point again that it's a sticking plaster while everything else in the background's a mess.
And with Martin O'Neill as well, one thing that's always been, he's always relied on his coaches. That's been a massive part. How the old school Brian Clough way, show up on a Friday. Coaching matters to Martin O'Neill than most managers anyway, and he obviously had something memorial for them. Maybe I think the point you made, Dermot, was fascinating about how just about his own vision and obviously moaning for them with their own view and things as well, how it would run. But I think O'Neill's it has to be good around O'Neill, and it always was with Steve Walford, John Robertson. He had a great coaching team that he trusted, and they seem to have that last season. But it has to be right because obviously what you do more, but as you say about his magic touch, and his kind of inspirational quotes, great with the media, is very important. But the coaching has to be right. That's you could feel that as well. Last season, when it wasn't, it was a massive problem. So
this is what I'm talking about, the short-termism. So they're going to hand out 3 and 4 year contracts to half a dozen big hitting first team signings that are going to fit perhaps a Martin O'Neill team. But what if Martin thinks after another year he's 75 and thinks, you know what, I'm pretty knackered, I'm going to step aside. Could have won the title. But listen, Swan, you're right. There's every chance that he could go and do it again. But he steps aside, and the next man is going to have a Martin O'Neill team to come into. Yeah. And if you get a Jens Bertolascu or whoever, the kind of up-and-coming trendy coach from the Bundesliga, you may not want that kind of team. Ange Postecoglou left a team that was perfectly suited for a Brendan Rodgers. That's not what suited Martin O'Neill. So what's going to happen down the line? I just think it's again, it's back to what you're saying about answers. Celtic are a complete puzzle right now. What direction do they want to go in? What do they want to do? They're taking kind of short-term solutions, which I understand because they're fairly safe. short-term solutions, but what does it mean for the long term? What is it? What is the vision for the next couple of years? It's hard to see it. It looks muddled to me.
Celtic have become absolute masters of kicking a can down the road.
Yeah.
Last season doing it. Even with the recruitment stuff, just bringing in loans, kick the can down the road again just to get through it. When everybody knew that January required major surgery with the squad, there was nothing really done, and it just ended up a succession of loans. Kick the can down the road again. Kick it down the notes, but I feel like it's been kicked down the road again.
Yeah. I just think the club does need modernise, really.
Supporters have been saying that for years.
Yeah, Derek doesn't pick managers, and that's fine when you bring in these big hitters. But at some point, you need to have some sort of longer-term plan in place that constructs a team that's built to last as well. I don't know. I think it's just a bit confusing.
We've said it before, Michael, that in the past sort of 10 years or so, or whatever, I can't remember exactly how long, but Ange Postecoglou and Brendan Rodgers sorted that whole thing out for them.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
In terms of recruitment. The managers sorted out the recruitment. And when they got it right, and it still wasn't working properly in the background.
Yeah.
But they managed to use their sources to get their people, to get their players in. And that's still relying on that Ange team, even through last season.
And unfortunately, Martin admits himself he's not got that Rolodex anymore in terms of players. And we saw it in January. Celtic were kind of left having to deal with agents and trying to kind of frantically source players. And look what happened. It was bargain basement stuff they got. It really was. And that they can't have a summer like that again, because that was actually worse than the August window, which was meant to be an all-timer. So, listen, in terms of targets, Youngie, you've been tuning in this World Cup, haven't you? Who are the targets? Who are the World Cup targets? When they're back to Neil's first spell back in 2000, Hunters went daft, by the way, because he got the job, then went to work for the BBC for the Euros.
Remember it?
It didn't get down well with fans. It's really early days of social media and all that stuff, but Hunters really happy that the Celtic manager sitting on the couch for the BBC when the team
came back with useful
points.
He came back with useful Haring. That was the problem. That helped me in defence.
Just stole my segue there.
I stole the
I must have signposted it a mile off, but
sorry.
Is there players in this World Cup that they can go and get? And I know they looked at a couple of the Bosnian boys, haven't they?
Basic, to be fair, the more recent link, I think he looks a better fit. He looks like I think exactly. But I think with Basic, the thing that he would offer you is the thing that I think Celtic fans and observers would say they need: a genuine player to spell Cal McGregor minutes. He plays at the base of the midfield. I think that's I think that's what Celtic need. I think that's been obvious for a while, that if Cal McGregor's out, the midfield, the balance change, no one can kind of dictate the way McGregor does. But I think they've always bought players in that position who are always viewed not as direct starters. I think this guy's got a different profile. He plays in Astana now, but I thought he was pretty decent the other night. He looked a good player. There's just looking around, actually, just when you ask the question, there's a winger plays for Iraq called Ali Jassim, right? And I think he could fit the profile in the sense he's a left winger, which Celtic will probably need soon. Maeda, if he goes, Jota's still injured. He's signed by Como, but he's been on loan for a couple of back to kind of the Middle East, and he's played pretty well, and he's direct, pacey winger, the type of winger that I think the kind of anti-Balikwisha winger, where it's not slow and it's the opposite, it's up and at them, the way Celtic need their wingers to stretch or get in behind low blocks. But Basic, I've got to be honest with that link, interests me because I think when you watch him, he gets about the pitch. He seems more akin to that kind of European football where, where Engels thrives as well. It's about a bit more athleticism, and I think he could be a player that maybe fits the profile. But there'll be loads as well. I think you always need to buyers beware, isn't it, during the World Cup? I think a Chaduri, that would have been one. I know he tried his best, but he wasn't the level of Celtic. And I think with
Oleg Salenko,
of course. How many was it? 4 goals he got in that game? 5 goals it was. That's the dream.
5, yeah.
Exactly. Someone made the joke last night. There was a post on social media about how Elijah Just would have just been signed straight away back in the day, where people were looking at his underlying numbers. Actually, he had probably as one who would fit the brief, but it's just this idea that that players used to just land big deals off success at World Cup. But I think Ali Jassim, I'll go for him. Seems a player that will probably leave Como in the summer. Left winger, gets up the pitch. I think it'd be maybe, and who knows, the way we're joking with Celtic might end up on the radar because I think they're looking for inspiration, but he is that type of player. I think it looks good.
Swanee, I'm going to kick him off this podcast. He's nicked another one of my segues.
Oh, I know, I saw the picture. Apologies.
I think he's seen my notes before we started the show. Cutting my grass right in there. Right over the lawnmower, I'm in the fly mower cutting my grass. I was just going to say there's a nifty wee player playing for New Zealand. I think would have done a job for Celtic at some point. And Elijah Just scored 2 goals the other night. Brilliant. Wee man's brilliant again. He was my vote for Player of the Year.
Yeah.
So why did Celtic not sign this kid in January? And is it now they missed the boat for this guy? Is it going to be out of reach now?
Yep. I think you've nailed it, Michael. I think you've nailed it. I think the problem you've got is there's 2 issues here. There was a perfect scenario for Celtic when Ange Postecoglou got Alistair Johnson organised before he went to Qatar. He kind of knew that Josip Juranovic was going to be leaving. Celtic sourced the guy they wanted and got it kind of done prior to him going and showing how good he was. What you want to try and get players tied down before they get the chance to get on that stage. The only thing I'll say in Celtic's defence, or the thing I will say in Celtic's defence, there is not an agent with a brain in the world who's going to allow one of their players to sign for a team a few days really before he plays in the World Cup.
No.
Really. I mean, listen, there'll be certain exceptions. Of course, there are. Lawrence Shanklin, for example, is a lifelong Rangers fan. He was always going to sign for Rangers, right? So that one would get done beforehand. But if you're Elijah Just's agent or Basic's agent or anybody else's agent, why on earth would you agree to go to a club before you've got 3 games on the biggest stage in the world where you can double your wages by 3 good performances? So, in one sense, it could blow Celtic out of the market because if these guys come in and do something, special, they're going to go to transfer fees and they're going to have half of Europe chasing them, and Celtic are probably not going to get them. So I do have some sympathy in that regard. But again, it comes back to lack of planning. But lack of planning. You should have been in the situation that you were in with Alistair Johnson, where it was all done and sorted before he got to Qatar. But now the boat's been missed, really. And to go back to your point about Elijah Just, you've been banging on about him all through last season, Michael, to be fair. Yeah. You said Celtic should have signed him in January. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's just back. Listen, Martin O'Neill obviously looked at him and didn't fancy him because he watched him enough. He saw playing him well.
I just can't understand. I mean, I kept saying it back in January and December.
Again, maybe his agent said, no, we're not making the move just now. You don't know that.
Yeah, potentially.
World Cup coming.
I just thought there was so much talk about Celtic and Maspanisi being a striker, and they were talking about they need to go and sign Maspanisi, need to go and sign Maspanisi, who, by the way, in the second season came off the boil a wee bit, Maspanisi. Yeah. And I can understand why there was a bit of reluctance on that part. I kept saying, I said to you boys in this podcast, they're looking at that's the wrong guy. The guy they want is Elijah Just. I mean, you're talking about Callum McGregor. Callum McGregor just turned 33. Elijah Just, he's a wee guy, but he's hard as nails. And he's brilliant on the ball, and he's had the goal his game as well. I think he knits the game together. I think he'd have been a crack addition. I think January, Celtic should have kicked the door down and tried to get him in January. But I also understand he didn't fit the profile for Martin O'Neill because he's a wee guy. Listen, I think that's a red herring because he's small, but he's tough as old boots. By the way, his first goal the other night, when he links up with Chris Wood. Chris Wood is the big England goalie, isn't he? But he wins the ball back and 1-2, and he shrugs off 2 guys, and he's strong. I mean, he's really strong. I just think he would have been an ideal addition. Even now, I don't think he'll fit the profile that he was looking for next season. But I think the boat's been missed. I think they should have went and kicked the door down in January and got him.
You would be slightly careful with that, Michael, in the sense that one of Martin O'Neill's key first signings when he very first walked in the door at Celtic was Neil Lennon. And Lenny's no giant.
True, this is true.
Strong in the middle of the park and kept the game ticking over. So for whatever reason, they either didn't fancy him or the agents thought, we're not signing something just now. The only way it could have been done was if they made the guy an offer he couldn't refuse in January. And what was the chances of Celtic doing that?
Yeah. The problem I've got is now is that these games, when you listen, these days clubs who are forward thinking know every player on the planet.
Absolutely.
So Eli Just isn't going to be just popping up because he scored 2 goals. It's not like Oleg Zelenko scoring 5 goals and then his phone goes out. But what might happen is that some clubs might look at that performance and go, who is this kid? Go and get me his data sets from Motherwell the last year.
He's gone now. He's gone. He's gone. He's gone.
These clubs will now look at his data sets from the year at Motherwell and look at him against Celtic, against Rangers, against Hearts, the big games, and look at his data in the games. And by the way, it's off the charts.
Exactly.
So he's not going to be surprised. I think Celtic have missed their chance on him. I think it'd be a shame because I think he would have done a really good job at Celtic, good age as well. But another one, guys, I mean, Youngie, another name that's been bouncing about, again, was bouncing about in January as well. Kieran Bowie over in Italy, just got relegated in Italy. There's a wee bit of rumbling. I don't know if that's obviously with him getting relegated. They didn't go there to go and play in the second tier in Italy. Celtic's name again mentioned, as often is the case. What was it, £6 million when he left against Hibs? Is he a realistic target for Celtic in terms of in the market financially and could do a job for them?
Well, I think we know with the money in the bank they could afford him, but I think there's among fans as well, sometimes there's always a hesitance when it's a more familiar name if you're spending big on it as well. Like, I think even Adam did a bit of that when it became a permanent deal, as much as he did well on the loan. But I really like Bowie's hold-up play. I think the worry with Bowie has always been, you know, how you get these flashes, the magic goals, or a game where he's really on it, and then maybe there's too many games where he's not. But what he was able to do in Italy as well, like I watched a few of his games at the end of last season. I just managed, and his all-round play was really good. Like the amount of times that against Juventus as well, really good hold-up play, excellent. And I think he'll have offers over there. I think he probably fits the bill. I just don't think he scores enough to be the number 9, but then you can also, a functional Celtic team sometimes, if there's a attacking midfielder scoring goals at Negrin's level, the wingers are chipping in. I think Brendan Rodgers' best team's Ange. The greatest strength was the goals are shared around. I think he is. It's just the number, isn't it? Like, what would you pay for a guy that went for $6 million has been able to do a pretty good job?
He scored 4 in his last 10 games for Italy.
He did that probably undersells with the overround play.
Yeah,
the play was really good as well. The hold-up play really came on, but I think that's a decent effort for him. But I can see a lot. Look at Josh Doig as well, was pretty similar, where you do well, and I think another Italian team. I think if you have Scottish players do have a great name now in Italy, of course they do. Everyone that goes over seems to thrive, but it's hard, isn't it? Like you probably there's that. If you're talking about somebody like Kasper Hawk at Bodo, he would bring you goals, maybe not guarantee them. The Bodo players don't transfer as well, but he doesn't have that hold-up play. Bowie gives you a hold-up play that a lot of these targets for abroad, the player for Switzerland as well that scored a lot of goals, that I think Bowie, whatever you lose in goals, he brings you something else and brings other players into the game. I think he'd be worth investing in, but again, it's such a hesitance even saying this, because a functional Celtic team would probably be looking at a player like that. I don't know if that amount of the budget would go to a player like Bowie.
Missed the boat again with that one. We could have had him.
Exactly.
They should have signed him before he went to Hibs. I thought Celtic should have got him before they went to Hibs. It's a kid in the rise. Would have been ideal. But Swan, would he be a good statement signing? I mean, if they go and spend £10 million on Kieran Bowie, 23-year-old, I thought he was unlucky not to make the Scotland squad for the World Cup. Would that not be a statement signing, going and get him £10 million, a 23-year-old Scottish striker who's done the business in Serie A?
I think an excellent player. And it's funny going back to the earlier part of your conversation, Michael, when you talked about sort of Martin type players. Mm-hmm. He's a Sutton and Hartson type, isn't he? You can hit him early from fullback, and he'll go and wrestle with defenders, and he'll take it in, and he'll roll guys, and you would get an idea then of, you know, the way Martin O'Neill was trying to play it at some stages earlier in the season when balls are being shelled up the pitch to Junior Adamu, and it's just not happening. Bowie's brilliant at that thing. I saw him doing it one day for Hibs against Celtic. He absolutely tortured Carter Vickers, and no many people do that. Very few people do that. And the day that Hibs beat Brendan Rodgers' team 2-1 at Easter Road, he gave Carter Vickers and Trusty a hell of a day. And that day, you kind of looked at him and thought, he could do a job for Celtic, really do a job for Celtic. No doubt he's gone away and honed himself. And there'll be wee bits brushed up from just general training every day and training in Italy and just parts of his game. I think it'd be an excellent signing. And I don't really back, use of that word statement, but it's interesting If Celtic went and signed a striker for £8 million from Serie A, and his name wasn't Kieran Bowen, he wasn't Scottish, supporters would be falling over themselves. So what's the difference? It's actually better. You've got somebody that knows the league, knows his way about the place.
Yeah,
it's actually better. Actually better than signing.
I agree with you. I think
doesn't know the culture and doesn't know his way around, Scotland and things like that. I think it'd be an excellent signing. Good age.
Good age, good investment. Again, like you say, I mean, it will kick on. 23 is an ideal sweet spot for Celtic to make signings that age. Yeah. Get 2 or 3 seasons out of them and sell them for big money. And that would happen with Kieran Bowen. I'm convinced of it.
But Michael, £8-10 million, that's where Celtic have to be looking. This squad needs serious players brought in here.
Yep.
Can he be fishing around the 4-5 million Balikwisha market again? No. They need to go and get some proper players. As it stands at the moment, they don't have a solitary, reliable, long-term, proper striker in there.
No.
Not one, unless I've missed one.
No. Well, Dyson Maida is the only one there, and he's going to be out.
I'm not counting Dyson Maida because I think we all know he's going to be leaving. Exactly. At the moment, there is zero, apart from Kelechi Iheanacho, who Martin O'Neill could only use for 30-minute cameos. And we talked about Iheanacho, and obviously, if he gets a full pre-season, is he worth another year contract? Yeah, he probably is. But that's no, I'm talking about a start or somebody that comes in, your guy that you're looking at is going to get you 20-25 goals. Celtic don't have any of them, not one. It's not one Kieran Bowen they need, it's 2.
You argue 3. 3 fit strikers. Listen, we'll keep an eye on it. Listen, we've done a job for the Celtic recruitment team here, giving them a few names and options.
Michael, sorry to butt in and stop you, but I mean, does that, what we've just said there, not give you an indication of where they are at the moment?
Absolutely.
So far behind, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. The
wide players that desperately need wide players in, desperately need front players in. There's going to be turnover in the middle of the park. It's just, they're so far behind, it's unbelievable.
But moving on to the next issue, Swan, obviously we're talking about Celtic aren't doing much, but it's not been the case elsewhere. I know this is the Celtic podcast, but you can't ignore what's happening elsewhere, especially when the 2 title rivals basically trade manager. And obviously you get Derek McInnes now heading to Ibrox from Hearts. I want to get you boys' thoughts on it in terms of how that is going to, from a Celtic stance, how does it affect Celtic? Because does it weaken Hearts in the first instance, who are the closest rivals in terms of the title race? Does it strengthen Rangers, who are the traditional rivals? How do you see it, Youngie?
Definitely strengthens Rangers. Derek McInnes is a fascinating. Well, I strongly feel he's the most underrated figure in Scottish football. When you think, just even the wee stat yesterday that I noticed that the last 3 teams not to be Rangers to finish top 2, it's been Derek McInnes coach teams. Aberdeen back-to-back seasons, and then Hearts last year. He's been kind of building towards this. He reinvent. He never had to reinvent. He did a brilliant job at Aberdeen. I thought he was so harshly treated in the end. Kilmarnock just. And this myth as well, sometimes I know I'm aware it's a Celtic podcast here, by the way, but I think you need to kind of be aware of what he brings, in the sense it's not hoofball, it's attacking wingers, it's fast football. I think that Rangers squad's not far away from kind of where he wants to be. He's got his main striker over for Hearts. This is obviously going to be Hearts' experimental second album. I think it'll be more fitting with Jamestown Analytics, the type of coach, the type of players. But Derek McInnes feels like a Rangers man. He's probably felt like that for a long time. And I think Celtic, this is where Celtic are. They got away with it last year in terms of being able to finish with a flurry. But I just think Rangers, there'll be a kind of points total. Derek McInnes has always been able to hit a points total or exceed it. Aberdeen, kind of reimagine where they can finish. Hearts last year have never had a season like that. There is no reason to think that a Rangers team that won 19-20 league games can suddenly win 28-30 or 31, that kind of level, the kind of more points total we're more used to with a title winning team. And then it's on Celtic to match that, because it's going to be a massive transitional season at Celtic. I think you need to be hyper aware of who McInnes is, what he brings to the table. And Hearts, I think, will just be, or Tony Bloom, and will be more comfortable with what they're becoming. I think they will have a more difficult season. I don't think they will get close to the points total last season, but I think Celtic fans have heard about Rangers coming and all this for years, but I think there's every reason to think Rangers will be at a different level under McInnes' guidance. I think it's just the fit that suits them, and it probably will work well.
This time they really are coming. What you're
They
saying?
are coming, honestly. I think that is. I think it feels that way, and I think most Celtic fans deep down would accept that that would be the case. I think that's the direction of travel for them under McInnes.
Should the Celtic board in particular be sitting looking at this thinking we need to get our act together quickly because the threat from rivals is going to be real this season?
No, they should be sitting there thinking we need to get our act together because our supporters deserve it, and nothing to do with what's happening across Glasgow. It shouldn't take that. It shouldn't have taken what happened with the Ronnie Dyler, Mark Warburton thing to spark Celtic into action to go and get Brendan Rodgers. It shouldn't take that. Celtic should be dealing with their own business and not really worrying about what's happening across the fence. Will Derek McInnes make Rangers better than Danny Rowe did? Probably. I would say almost certainly, because we've talked on this podcast before, Michael. Celtic and Rangers need managers, not coaches. Rangers have been spitting out coaches for years. Michael Beals and Danny Rose and cupboard boys. No good. You need a manager. I think McInnes is a manager. Celtic have got a manager. And if Celtic go and do their business properly, they're the team that's to be removed from the top. And Celtic should not be concerning themselves with what's happening at Rangers. They should be sorting their own house out and getting it done for the sake of their own. Champions League, the fallout from last year's Champions League, everything started to tumble downhill after those Kairat Almaty games. Celtic should be laser focused on getting a proper squad together for this Champions League qualifier, get through into the Champions League, and away you go.
Yeah.
So back, moving in the direction that they were in the season when Brendan Rodgers had them playing against Bayern Munich. That's what it was 24.
Yeah, and it's by the way, so excuse me, it's only 60 odd days to that Champions League qualifier. So I mean that makes sense. It might sound like a decent amount of time, but it's not really. That clock is very much ticking, and they're going to have to swing it. Actually, listen, Brian Wilson did say it's going to be a very busy summer, so he has promised. Dermot Desmond in the statement that Neil said they're going to back Martin O'Neill again. I'm not sure what the word again meant. Did it mean again by the same in January? That's not going to cut it. So does he mean again as if the kind of the backing he got in 2000, which was substantial? That's what he needs. So yeah, the only reason I'm tired. I mean, you mentioned Celtic need to look after their own house, which is absolutely right, Swanee. But there is that feeling, the accusations from fans that Celtic are happy being 1 point ahead of Rangers. That's always been the accusation. What I'm stressing is, are we thinking that now under McInnes at Rangers, that 1 point is going to be a higher? And as Young, you touched on, I've spoken to Derek about this in the past, but it does set point targets. I think it was 75 points at Aberdeen, and then again at Hearts. They shot 80 at Hearts last season, and it just so happened that because the Rangers had poor seasons, that brought them back into the fighting for the title. He'll be targeting 90 points at Rangers next season, which would put you right in the fight for the title. So I've no doubt about it that they'll win there.
What Celtic lose last season, Michael? 8 games in the league?
8 games.
8 games and still win it? Well, it'll not happen again. You can half that and you might still be struggling to win it.
You usually get 3 or 4 if you're lucky.
You can half that and you still be a fight.
Yeah.
So Celtic know what they need to do. But really and truly, my point only was, and I take your point on board completely. Yeah, right, that you're going to have, that you're going to face a bigger fight, but at the end of the day, Celtic should know that what happened last season wasn't acceptable, and they should have been working towards rectifying it, regardless of what happens elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. But listen, boys, we'll wrap it up there, and we'll get back to the World Cup enjoyment. Looking for the Nuggets and the stars of the World Cup. They might be coming to Scotland. I don't think of that many, in fairness. Just before we go, any bonkers bets for the next kind of few days next week in the World Cup? Man, for giving me tips.
Michael, it's Royal Ascot week. I've got enough bonkers bets to be doing me without getting involved in World Cup football.
I was hoping you would tell me how good Jordan are against Austria.
Oh, that'd be a good game.
Portugal, Congo. I'm looking forward to that one. But unfortunately not. Youngie, what you tip?
I hate to not be patriotic, but you can't help but look at even money Morocco.
Come on, Swanee.
I know. Every bone in your body's telling you.
I know.
It's telling you one thing, your heart's telling you, your head's telling you the other thing.
I think Senegal. This is famous last word because the game's so close, but Senegal have been competitive for a long. They've got a good team, and France might be in the Spain mode of playing their way into the tournament. Obviously, it was that 2002 that Senegal beat them, so maybe that's in their minds. But I wouldn't shock me if that was pretty close. And then maybe just Iraq, I think, are maybe a really good team as well. Ali Jassim have just maybe the game for them against Norway. I think Norway are in that kind of position Ecuador were in, where the hype kind of might outweigh the actual standing of the team at present. But we'll wait and see. Maybe Haaland will have a field day, but it should be good. And maybe Morocco as well secretly, but I wasn't going to say that out loud. But thanks, Swanee.
Oh, you cut my grass and Swanee tipping Morocco. You two are both getting kicked off the podcast. We're all going to go. I'm going to put my money on Uzbekistan to give Colombia a fright. That's where I'm going. I'll be sitting up at 4 o'clock in the morning with my Uzbekistan shirt on. My adopted team.
Uzbekistan left back to be picked for your bet builder.
I'm hoping for Uzbekistan Champions League. Are they still they in UEFA or are they Asia? Who knows? We've been at that neck before, but we'll wait and see. Listen, we'll wrap it up there, boys. Thanks for your time. Thanks everyone for tuning in as always. We appreciate your comments. I got a stickler a week for digging out a Sports Direct mug. So I'm back to my one pelters. Apparently I was sending out subliminal messages, but I don't know what they were. I like a cheap deal, I don't know. Anyway, but as I say, everyone, thanks again for watching. Leave your comments and we'll catch you again next week.